Hey YouTube, Jay Green 302. Another late night, 11:30. So if I seem tired, it's because I am. This one we're going to call disease. Several things have happened that prompted this. One, I started looking at property in West Virginia. They got gas wells deeded into the property. Low tax rates. I got a buddy of mine in Texas that works in the gas industry and got filled in. Found somebody that lives in the county that I was actually looking in and have been asking a lot of questions. And so I had this terrain in mind, and I also at the same time was in a Facebook group with preppers, and long story short, a whole bunch of people pissed me off, and I had to get out of there. And what set it all off was after reading through tons and tons and tons of posts, I put in a couple of posts about disease and handling disease, and I was talking about if you do not know how to manage human waste in a long-term situation, do you realize the implications? Do you understand that there will be dead bodies around? And I had the Appalachian Mountains in mind, and I'm sitting there thinking about the elevation changes and some things, and so we got to talking. And how do I put it? I think, at least in my mind, my concerns, secondary to an armed individual trying to, out of desperation, come after what supplies I've got and is hell-bent on, I'm going to die anyway, so I might as well try, storming this dude's house. If I win, I get food. If I don't, I die. I'm going to die anyway. Well, I think disease is threat too. I'm terrified of it because it's biological based. And I was talking to this guy out in West Virginia, and I was telling him I was concerned about the wells. I was concerned about the fact that the wastewater from the wells might contaminate the drinking water. And then we started talking about what got me all fired up. And some of the things I was telling him is I wanted to put eyes on the land. I wanted to look at the elevation changes and what would be within my control and what would be upstream of me. And I was telling him, look, what if I scored some property and the people next to me had not been thinking or were not thinking along these lines, and we're taking a shit in the creek without any thought of the fact that they're contaminating the water supply downstream? Or what if what happens when you have 300 dead bodies in town and you've got dogs running around that are feeding on these bodies, and you've got decay, and you've got maggots, and you've got all this parasitical issues going on because there's no sanitation, there's no body disposal, and then these animals are running loose, and if somebody gets bit, biologically they could be in trouble. What if the wildlife is chewing on human bodies? What if foxes, or what if the dogs bite deer? What if it transfers into the food system? How would you know? How can you stop? Or how do you deal with the death, decay, and the disease that comes with massive death and keep it out of the food system? What happens if you shoot a deer, if you're lucky enough to find one, and it's diseased and you don't know it? Couple of points in case on this subject. The Middle Ages, the Black Plague, Panama, 40,000 I think died from malaria. There was a gentleman's name, and I forget the guy's name, who stood up against the establishment in the early 1900s or late 1800s and said, hey, you're doing autopsies on bodies, and then you're going in and doing surgery, and you're probably passing disease along. They put him in an institution and never let him see the light of day again. But thanks to that guy, and this is the important part, the medical industry learned to wash their hands. You see where I'm going with this. It's disease. It's your food chain, your water supply, and a lot of death. You can do everything right, but if the people around you happen to be upstream of your water supply, they can kill you. What do you do about it? Don't know. It's open for discussion. What happens if the food supply becomes a problem because of death, an excessive amount of death? What if the bugs, the maggots, the flies, and everything start affecting the animals and transfer the diseases? What happens then? What do you do if the rabbits are not edible? What do you do if the deer are something that are making you sick? Scary questions. Very, very scary questions. I started a complete shitstorm with these idiots because what was the one comment the guy said? Well, gee, it's just common sense. Everybody just goes and builds an outhouse. I checked my garage. I don't have building materials in there to build an outhouse. So it's not this moronically simple solution. I understand how to work with latrines and cover fecal matter and some other things, and I'm reasonably safe in my belief that I can handle the human waste. That's in my control. There are other things that are not in our control. And I thought that I would just sit down and put the subject out there. It's yet again, it's subjects that are not discussed. The solutions are not reasonably covered. And I don't understand myself well enough to provide answers or potential answers at this point. I'm like staring at a bad wall, and I'm going, well, there's just only so much that you can control, and I'm not enough of a doctor to be able, or a veterinarian, to look at the deer I just shot and go, well, okay, he looks like he's disease free. I don't know if you guys are. Can you see herpes simplex 3? I can't. So what do you do? That's all I've got. Just thought I'd put the subject out there, give you something to chew on. If anybody's got some good answers on these, damn sure willing to listen. But thanks as always for listening.